I've gotten to the point as a roller coaster enthusiast where I have ridden 10 different RMCs. And because this is one of the most well regarded manufacturers in the industry, I wanted to rank the top 10 roller coasters I have been on by RMC. Fun fact, I've actually been on 11 different RMCs, but I have been on Railblazer and Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And they're basically the same ride, so they're going to take one spot on this list. So it's going to be 10, not 11. I am a big RMC fan, but I don't think I'm as big of a fan as a lot of other coaster enthusiasts. Their restraints aren't my favorite. Like their traditional restraints that you can find on a vast majority of their roller coasters. I think they're very heavy, so they can really crush down on you during positive G-force moments, which can make experiencing the insane forces on these attractions a little difficult. But over the last few years, I've come up with a few different strategies to manage some airtime room on these attractions. So for that reason, I feel like some of the coasters that I have ridden more recently will probably rank higher than the coasters I haven't rode in a few years. You gotta consider recency bias too, so I'll let you know when the last time I rode all of these coasters was. Starting things off with number 10 is Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. I know this is pretty well regarded as one of the worst RMCs, if not the worst, and I am absolutely one of those people who considers it to be one of the weakest RMCs. It's pretty short and it doesn't have that many airtime pops, and I'm a very airtime focused person. Like that's always my favorite part of any ride experience. When I hit the brake run, I'm thinking back to the best airtime moments, you know? That being said, this ride does do inversions really well, even though there's only 3, so you got that step up underflip, you got the 0G stall, and there's one more roll in there, all of which are very floaty elements. This was actually my 100th roller coaster back in 2019, and in 2023 I got a day at Discovery Kingdom where I got to get a few re-rides in on it. But I still walked away thinking it was pretty weak. I do love RMC inversions, but I would rather take RMC airtime over RMC inversions, so I think it specializes in the wrong category. Plus, there's a few turns that kind of feel like wasted elements. Like if RMC did this project now, I feel like they would be a lot more creative with this layout. Like most of the newer RMCs are like non-stop creativity and exciting elements. Like it's hard to find a dud element on a recent RMC, and I would argue that Joker has a couple overbanks that really don't do anything, so that's a little disappointing. But it also speaks to how high of a standard we hold RMC to, because Joker is not a bad ride at all. Moving on to number 9 is Outlaw Run. I've only made one trip to Silver Dollar City, which was in 2020. I believe I got 3 days at the park and I got multiple rides on Outlaw Run. 2020 was before I figured out how to ride an RMC, so I was stapled for most of my rides on Outlaw Run. So this is one of the top rides that I feel like I need a re-ride on. Outlaw Run probably has the best, if not one of the best, settings for any RMC. It's absolutely stunning. It's very pretty. Plus, this coaster had like no line my entire trip at Silver Dollar City, so that was just like paradise, you know? This also might be one of my favorite first drops on any RMC. It's very steep and it's very tall, and once again, the setting is just beautiful, so you have a great view. I really love Outlaw Run, and I really want to give it another shot, so I feel kind of bad putting it so low. But the airtime was just insane. I remember the wave turn being one of those elements that just absolutely floored me. There were a couple of bunny hops throughout the layout that were just incredible as well. There's a twisted airtime hill that I remember being really strong. And of course you got the 3 inversions on a wooden coaster, which is really cool. The finale, the double barrel roll, I actually remember being pretty painful. I don't know why, but the RMC restraints and hang time don't mix well for me personally. I feel like whenever you get hang time on an RMC inversion, it's painful. And this is probably one of the most painful elements I've experienced on an RMC. I don't know if it's just the way that my thighs are shaped or whatever, but I was not comfortable during that finale, which is weird because during like the stalls on like Twisted Colossus or Joker, I'm like completely fine. So I don't know what it is about this one inversion, or these 2 inversions, I guess. These 2 inversions in particular, they weren't very comfortable for me, or maybe it was because I was stapled. I don't know. It was a few rides 4 years ago, so my memory's not the best. But I do owe this ride some re-ride, because I know a lot of people consider this one of the best RMCs. But it is short, that's for sure. Number 8, we got the original, New Texas Giant. I rode this 10 times in January of 2023, so I have a very good feel for this attraction. It's got 4 elite airtime moments. The first drop, there's a step up after the first drop, there's a bunny hill after the 3 overbanks, and then there's a drop into the wooded structure. A few of the other hills are just floaty. The 3 overbanks that like create the infield are all very different, and I really enjoy them. The first one has like some floaty airtime in the right side of the train. The second one has a really strong airtime moment because it's got like a straight drop that's pretty steep. The third one is a traditional overbank. So I really like how they could have done like those 3 elements could have been profiled very similarly, and it could have been really boring. But RMC, even back in 2013, was being creative with their layouts. That being said, though, there are a couple dead spots during this attraction where it feels like the ride isn't doing much. Specifically in those tunnels towards the end of the ride, but it still ends with a bang during that final bunny hop. So this is a very well-rounded experience, even though it was the original. Plus, I do like the Gerstlauer restraints. I find it easier to get airtime room. I feel like they're comfortable too, the way that they're shaped, so I really enjoy that. Moving on to number 7, we have Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is the first Raptor coaster to appear on this list, and I absolutely love this attraction. I have a full separate review for this already on the channel. It's got amazing airtime moments, specifically the first drop, the camelback, and the turnaround in the back row. It's just absolutely elite. Plus the 3 inversions are probably the best inversions that we've talked about so far in this video. I love the dive loop. You get airtime on an inversion, which is just absolutely insane. The stall is really high off the ground, so it's got some crazy visuals. And the 0G roll is super floaty, so it's just amazing. It's so much fun. This is definitely my type of ride. It's not crazy intense, but you get some nice strong airtime and some really fun inversions. It does have a slight rattle to it though, so that's a big downside. Honestly, out of all the coasters on this list, this is definitely the shakiest RMC out there. But in my opinion, it's still a really, really strong attraction, and it's pretty underrated. Moving on to number 6, we have a pretty sizable jump in quality between 7 and the rest of the list, because number 6 is Twisted Colossus. This ride is awesome. You get 2 first drops, you pretty much get 2 layouts for the price of 1 wait time, so that's just awesome. Some of my favorite airtime moments are the blue camelback under the 0G stall, obviously both of the first drops, and after the first drop you crest into the wave or the high 5. That pop up into the high 5 is an elite airtime moment on both tracks, but the blue side dives down further, so I feel like it's a little stronger. Plus the green high 5, you like twist the unnatural way, so it's a little crazier, you get more whip, and I'd say it's like a sharp pop of airtime that only lasts a brief moment. In terms of inversions, we got the stall, which is awesome. It's not painful, as I discussed, and we have the 0G roll. This one is pretty inconsistent. If you catch Twisted Colossus, when it's running slow, it'll be pretty floaty. If you go on a hot day, preferably when it's running 3 trains and operating for a long time, it'll be really, really whippy. It's crazy how the difference in this element. So I prefer when it's running fast and whippy, because that might be one of the most whippy elements I've ever been on, but it's not always that way, so I don't give it that much credit. I don't really care that it doesn't duel that much. The dueling aspect just doesn't really appeal to me as much as it does to other people, so I'm fine going through an awesome layout just as a singular train. Sometimes I feel like going up the lift hill right next to a bunch of strangers on the other train can be a little awkward because you just stare at each other, and if there's no one like talking, or if there aren't people who know each other, then it's just kind of silent and you just look at each other and like smile and then the ride starts, so that's not great. I mean, I don't care, it's whatever. But in my opinion, the biggest downside of Twisted Colossus is the finale. The green side kind of twists into the brake run, and in my opinion, these laterals you get here are pretty uncomfortable. I am not a fan. I feel like that's pretty painful. But it's only a few seconds, so it's not too bad. Number 5 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. I got to visit King's Dominion in 2017 while they were converting Hurler to Twisted Timbers, and I got to visit again in 2022. I got a few laps on this attraction, and this thing does airtime better than pretty much every other ride that we've talked about so far. It's insane. The 3 camelbacks back to back to back are like one of the best sequences on any roller coaster ever. I'm not even kidding. It's just absolutely insane. Plus, you still have the 3 inversions. You got the barrel roll down drop, a cutback, which doesn't really feel like an inversion. It like snaps you upside down for a brief second before it pulls out. And then you got a very floaty 0G roll. Or I guess it's just a roll. But all of these inversions are really fun. And the day that I was at King's Dominion, the park was dead, so I got multiple laps in on this thing. A major downside about the attraction is the loose article policy. You have to walk through a metal detector, which is just such a hassle. It's really annoying. It's just disappointing. But anyway, another downside is the barrel roll down drop in the front row kind of feels like the hang time during the double corkscrew on Outlaw Run. It was a little painful in the front row just for like a split second. Like, I'm totally nitpicking and exaggerating it, but it was there, so I just wanted to point that out. If you ride the front row on Twisted Timbers, you'll get hang time during the barrel roll down drop because you're moving slower. If you're in the back row, you get pulled through it, so you don't get that. At least for me. I have no idea if I'm the only one with this problem, but I've noticed it on Twisted Timbers and on Outlaw Run. I'm also not the biggest fan of how this ride did the Outer Bank. It's a little uncomfortable, and it's very aggressive and snappy, so if you're into that sort of stuff, then you'll probably love this moment. But for me, I prefer graceful, and I prefer sustained airtime instead of this gnarly transition that you get. But again, this is an example of how RMC is like very creative. Like, turns are probably one of the most boring things a roller coaster can do. So I really respect the creativity and the unique quality of this element. So it's really not that big a deal. I love the trick track double up too. This attraction does airtime so well. So great. I love it. In my opinion, if you take this element and you take away the best airtime moments, you pretty much just have Joker. So I feel like that really highlights the difference in quality between those two attractions. Twisted Timbers is Joker with much more and much better airtime moments. It was a really close race between Twisted Timbers and Twisted Colossus. I've been on Twisted Colossus so many more times, so it's really hard to compare because I'm a Southern California native. But I chose Twisted Timbers because there were no like really uncomfortable lateral moments like the finale of Twisted Colossus. And I would prefer the Outer Bank on Twisted Timbers over the finale of Twisted Colossus. But they're both absolutely amazing attractions, and all of the negatives I highlighted are total nitpicks. Moving on to number 4, this is where the OG Raptors come into play. We have Railblazer and Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Fiesta, Texas. I have ridden Railblazer way more times than I've ridden Golden Lasso Coaster. I only rode that attraction 2 times, one day in 2019. But I remember the experience feeling identical to Railblazer. I also rode Railblazer in 2019, and I said it felt the same. So we're just gonna combine them here. But I prefer the aesthetic of Railblazer, and the color scheme looks better than the McDonald's colors that are on both the Wonder Woman roller coasters. But this layout is just absolutely wild. It is very short, but it packs it in. You have 3 absolutely elite airtime moments and 2 really amazing inversions, and you have the cutback. Plus you have the positive G's during the rising helix, and you have a really solid finale with the overbank. So just element by element, this thing is absolutely insane. The 3 beyond powerful airtime moments are by far my favorite part of the ride experience. The drop is insane. The twisted airtime hill is wild, and the drop off of the S-curve is very powerful as well. I'm actually kind of glad the S-curve is there because it gives you a brief second to like catch your breath, because this layout is just wild. It's insane. And the dive loop gives you like powerful airtime, very powerful airtime. It's not like the fact that the dive loop on Flight of Courage gives you airtime is crazy enough, but the fact that this one gives you insane ejector is it's like beyond comprehension. It's crazy. And then the corkscrew at the end of the ride gives you some really nice hang time / float, so it's great. This is just a very awesome ride experience. And I'm glad I've gotten to be able to ride Railblazer so many times. This is another attraction that I have a full separate review for. Number 3, this is probably the hardest one to rank for me. It is Iron Rattler at Fiesta, Texas. I rode this attraction 7 times in one day over 5 years ago, so it's very difficult to rank. When I rode it, at the time, I hadn't even reached 100 roller coasters yet, and now I'm at over 250 credits. This and Outlaw Run are the 2 attractions that I really need to get re-rides on someday. But my memories of Iron Rattler were just incredible. It was my number 2 overall when I rode it in 2019. The drop is absolutely incredible. There's a few amazing airtime moments. The inversion is really fun and floaty, and it's overall just an incredible experience. You have sideways airtime during that first wave turn on top of the quarry wall, and obviously the drop off of the quarry wall is just, it's a very powerful airtime moment. Plus, you gotta consider it has the Gerstlauer trains, which I think are a little more comfortable than the RMC trains. It's a little easier to get airtime too. A lot of people complain about how the pacing is impacted by the quarry wall and how the train kind of crawls during those bunny hops on top of the quarry. But when I rode it, it was actually powerful airtime. Like, I have a very distinct memory where I had zipper pockets, and for whatever reason, my anxiety was telling me, oh, you didn't zip up your pocket. So after the barrel roll on the attraction, I was checking my pocket to make sure it was zipped. And when that happened, we went over one of those bunny hills, and I was just, I don't know if it was because I wasn't paying attention, but I was absolutely floored at how powerful it was. I was like, whoa, it like absolutely chucked me out of my seat. So I disagree with the complaints about the quarry wall pacing, but I've also only ridden this attraction on one day, so I'm not sure if I'm that qualified to dispute those criticisms. But I would really love to ride Iron Rattler again because I remember it being an absolutely incredible ride experience. Moving on to number 2, which is Lightning Rod, which I rode in July of 2023. I got 9 rides over 3 days, and I was absolutely floored by this ride experience. I rode it in the last operating year with the launch, so I feel very lucky for that. But even without the launch, I feel like this ride would still be elite, because by far my favorite part of this attraction is the layout. The quad down is incredible, the wave turn is insane, and it's just packed wall to wall with awesome airtime moments. It's absolutely insane. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of graceful floater airtime and sustained airtime, so going into Lightning Rod, I didn't think I would be a big fan of the quad down, but I walked away absolutely blown away, because technically it's not sustained, but the fact that it's just back to back to back, and each pop is so powerful, it's just amazing. I was floored. I love the quad down, but I do think I prefer the massive wave turn because that's more up my alley with the sustained airtime. Plus it's sideways, so that's just absolutely insane. But that's no disrespect to the quad down. I absolutely love that thing. It would be like the highlight of the ride on like any other roller coaster, but that just speaks to how insane Lightning Rod is. When I rode it in 2023, there was a bad rough patch right after the wave turn, so that was my big negative with this attraction. And I wasn't that impressed with the launch either, so when we found out that it was being removed for the chain lift, I wasn't that disappointed. The best parts of Lightning Rod are still going to be there, and I have no idea when I'll be back to Dollywood, so I'm not sure when I'll be able to try this thing out with the chain lift. But it's just an awesome roller coaster, man, and I have a full separate review for this attraction as well. But number 1 is Steel Vengeance. This is just on another level. It's so long, it's incredibly long, and it's just airtime hill after airtime moment, airtime moment, airtime moment. It's just crazy. The outer bank on this attraction might be my favorite element I've ever experienced anywhere. It's just sustained and powerful airtime. It's absolutely incredible. The drop is insane. The top hat element that it has after that is beyond insane. It's just, this ride is just nonstop insanity pretty much. I love how many airtime moments it has. It has more airtime than any other roller coaster on the planet. So for that reason alone, it's just my type of ride because it's an airtime machine. It's the king of airtime, man. There isn't a ride on earth that's better at airtime than Steel Vengeance. And this is a ride with multiple inversions, all 3 of which are very fun. Even the elements that look like they wouldn't give you airtime, they give you airtime. So this ride experience is just incredible, and I really hope to get back to Cedar Point soon to get more laps in on Steel Vengeance. So those are my top 10 RMCs. I gotta give a dishonorable mention to Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom and to Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa. I've seen both with my own eyes. I visited Kentucky Kingdom and I visited Busch Gardens Tampa, but I didn't get to ride either. Iron Gwazi is kind of my fault. It was running in the morning and the early afternoon. It closed for a rainstorm and it did not reopen, so I was pretty disappointed by that, but I would love to go back to Busch Gardens Tampa to get get a lap in on Iron Gwazi. As for Storm Chaser, I visited Kentucky Kingdom 2 days in 2020, and both days it was closed for my entire visit. Storm Chaser is the real loser of this video. But anyway, do you agree with my list? How would you change it? Have you been on all of these attractions? Have you ridden more RMCs than I have? Please let me know in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.